I first crossed paths with Gavin Matthews when I began working part-time at Crescent Bay Realty. After our daughter Olivia started high school, I felt an uneasy restlessness during the day, longing for something beyond the endless errands and household chores. Gavin and his wife, Lana, lived just a couple of houses down from us in our upscale cul-de-sac. We shared neighborly greetings, casual barbecues, holiday gatherings, and light conversations during evening strolls. One evening, over a glass of wine, I casually mentioned that I was thinking about returning to work. Gavin kindly suggested, "Why don't you drop by the office next week? We could really use someone like you." That's how I ended up joining Crescent Bay, mainly handling administrative duties, scheduling clients, managing paperwork, while Gavin spent his days out in the field, charming potential buyers and networking with affluent clients. At first, Gavin's compliments seemed innocent, even flattering. "That dress is dangerously good," he'd joke with a sly smile. "You're wasted stuck behind a desk." I brushed them off with a laugh. I was married and not naive. But slowly, I began to crave those remarks. They made me feel noticed, desired, and for the first time in years, truly attractive. I never planned to have an affair, but it happened anyway. It started with subtle touches and lingering looks that lasted just a heartbeat too long. Eventually, we crossed the line, and once that boundary was broken, I became addicted to the thrill, his daring, the way Gavin could unravel me with the gentlest touch. Being with him was more than passionate. It was wild, overwhelming, and euphoric, an escape that made me forget everything else, including my marriage. My husband, Daniel, was frequently away on business trips, flying out to meetings with investors and partners. When he left, Gavin would come over, sometimes just minutes after Daniel's suitcase had disappeared out the door. It became our routine. I convinced myself no one was losing out. Everyone got what they needed. What harm was there if no one ever found out? But that morning shattered everything. We lay in bed while sunlight crept slowly across the room like a spotlight on our shame. I was slipping on my robe, casually talking to Gavin about Olivia's college plans and our upcoming summer vacation. He was still half naked, lounging on the edge of the bed, grinning like a mischievous teenager as he prepared to sneak out the window. Just as I turned on the shower, Gavin suddenly burst into the bathroom, pale as a ghost. His voice was a whisper trembling with panic. "He's here," Gavin said. "He's in the kitchen, and he has a gun." I blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" "Daniel," Gavin hissed. "He's supposed to be in DC, right?" "He's not. He's downstairs, and he's got a gun." His words hollowed out my chest. "You're serious?" "I'm not joking," he replied. "He's just sitting there, tapping the barrel on the table. I don't even think he's noticed me yet." Time fractured. My breath caught. I hurried to wrap my robe tighter, my eyes wide with disbelief. My husband, the man I thought incapable of violence, was in the kitchen, armed. We had bars on our windows, not because the neighborhood was unsafe, but quite the opposite. It was a wealthy area that burglars dreamt about. After several neighbors were broken into, Daniel insisted on installing a full security system. He even purchased a gun, though it mostly stayed locked away in our safe. My hands shook as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My husband is in the house with a gun, I whispered. I'm upstairs. He hasn't seen me yet. I'm scared for my life. Are you alone? No, a friend is here. We're hiding. I wasn't sure we could get past him. After giving our names, Mara and Daniel Whitaker, the dispatcher said something that both comforted and terrified me. I've dispatched a unit. Officers are on their way. Please stay on the line. My hands trembled uncontrollably. Quietly, I crept to the window overlooking the backyard. Soon enough, 2 patrol cars appeared, easing down the street with hardly a sound. The officers stepped out, already wearing bulletproof vests and weapons drawn. They positioned themselves around the house, moving tactically from each side. The doorbell rang, followed by a heavy knock. I watched from the bathroom window as one officer cautiously approached the sliding glass door at the back. He crouched behind an old ash tree, whispering into his radio. "He's still there," the officer reported. Glock on the table, just tapping it. No movement. "Don't engage unless absolutely necessary." My phone rang again. A calm, authoritative voice introduced himself. Captain Mandrel. "Mara, does your husband have any history of mental illness?" I whispered. "No. He's always been stable. Or at least, he was. He's never been violent. He's calculated. If anything, he'd hurt himself before anyone else." "Well," the captain said, "we'll take every precaution. But if he refuses to put down the weapon, we will have to act." "Please," I begged, "don't hurt him." Outside, a megaphone crackled to life. "Daniel Whitaker, drop your weapon. Come out with your hands up." Silence. Then the officer's voice again, tense. "He's not responding. Just sitting there." Suddenly, a loud explosion shattered the kitchen window. I screamed. "We have contact," an officer called out. "He dropped the weapon. He's not moving." I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. My throat was raw from screaming, but I hadn't even noticed until then. From the closet, Gavin appeared, shaking. Moments later, armed officers stormed the room, secured the area, and ordered us to lie face down. "He's alive," one officer finally said, "but he's not responding. He may be catatonic." Outside, I saw them load Daniel into the ambulance. His face was ashen, blood staining his arm. He didn't look at me or move, just stared blankly ahead. At the hospital, I waited for hours before a doctor finally approached me. Dr. Schaefer's expression was grave. "Mrs. Whitaker, physically your husband is stable, but he's suffered a traumatic brain injury, likely due to psychological shock. He's not responding to visual or verbal cues, only to certain stimuli like light or sound." "Can I see him?" I asked. "You can try," the doctor said, "but I must warn you, in cases where the trauma is caused by someone close, seeing you could sometimes worsen his condition." I nodded, bracing myself as I stepped forward. I stepped into Daniel's hospital room, my heart shattering at the sight before me. Tubes and machines surrounded him, his eyes vacant and unseeing. "Daniel," I whispered softly, "I love you." His eyes suddenly snapped open, and he let out a raw, piercing scream, wild and animalistic, that broke something inside me. Nurses rushed in immediately, and Dr. Schaefer gently pulled me aside. This is because of you," he said, not angrily, but with a clinical detachment, as if struggling to grasp what had happened. I couldn't bring myself to tell Olivia the whole truth. Instead, I told her father had suffered a seizure and was in the hospital. She begged to come home, but I convinced her to stay and finish her midterms. She didn't know the reality, at least, not yet. The weeks that followed felt unbearable. Every morning I called the hospital, hoping for some progress. There was none. Occasionally, they let me play recordings of my voice for him, but each time Daniel heard me, he either screamed or completely zoned out. He no longer recognized me, not as his wife, not as anyone. Eventually, Rhonda found out the truth. She confronted me, accusing me. I didn't blame her. Our friendship fractured, and she stopped reaching out. 10 months dragged by. Then one day, Dr. Schaefer called. "He's starting to wake up," he said, "but he no longer responds to your voice. You can visit him, but be prepared." I hurried to the psychiatric facility, heart pounding. "Daniel," I breathed. He blinked slowly and regarded me like a stranger. Then, in a calm voice, he asked, "Who are you?" The room seemed to spin. "I'm Amara, your wife." He tilted his head, skeptical. "I don't think so. If you were my wife, I'd feel it. That spark, the butterflies. But you mean nothing to me. I swallowed hard. Daniel, we have a daughter. He looked away and said quietly, I'm sorry. I don't remember loving you. A nurse gently guided me out. Give him time, she whispered. Sometimes memories come back slowly, sometimes they don't return at all. I visited him every day, sitting by his side and sharing stories from our life together. He was polite, courteous, but it felt like I was just another hospital worker, a stranger from a forgotten past. Eventually, Olivia came to visit. She took his hand and cried. And when Daniel smiled at her, really smiled, I knew he remembered her at least. I had shattered my family, my marriage, my future. I couldn't undo what had happened, but I accepted the pain because, somehow, I felt I deserved it.